The dating life here as a single lady that has dropped out to the US, it's kind of interesting. Dating someone of a different cultural background is hard for anyone. I think what makes it different for men and women is because, at least I will speak for Nigerian women, we are way more reluctant to date outside our race. There's a reason, like it's difficult. It can be a very exciting experience, but it can also be very daunting. My name is Ejura Yetunde Salihu. I'm a PhD student, third year, in the University of Wisconsin-Madison, specifically in the Department of Health Services Research in Pharmacy. So in Nigeria, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in human anatomy in 2011. And then shortly after, I decided to pursue a master's in human anatomy as well. But I was really interested in getting a PhD. That's been something I've been passionate about for a very long time. So I started applying to schools in the US for a PhD admission, but it didn't work out. So the first 2 years, I was just submitting applications upon applications, writing statements of purpose. I probably wrote up to 100 drafts of that thing. But yeah, it was just rejection after rejection. So I discussed with a friend. She actually reached out on Twitter. She's an old friend, Teniola. She reached out and asked, Ejura, I know you've been trying to get an admission to PhD. How is that going? And I was like, yeah, not good at all. So she asked, are you okay with the idea of applying for another master's degree program? It may be easier once you're already in the system to get admitted into a PhD program. So I got the admission, luckily got the visa and jackpot to the US. When I got here, my first semester was kind of rough because I didn't come with a graduate assistantship. Eventually, I went to the Department of Sociology and I asked them if they had graduate assistantship. They said, they only give their students. I was like, okay. So if I change my program, would you give me graduate assistantship? They said yes. I was like, medical sociology was always something I thought was interesting, but I didn't think it was possible for me to change. But that's the wonderful thing about the US here, there's just that flexibility, the world is basically your oyster. You can move in any direction. It was a wonderful experience. I got to broaden my academic horizon. And that is when I started thinking more into health services research. And luckily, social science just fits better into my skill set and my strengths. The reason JAPA is such a huge part of the Nigerian psyche is because our education system doesn't really give you that room to learn all that you can and be prepared to be competitive. So I'll speak in my context as a Nigerian. And I miss home a lot, right? But it's really hard to, the cost of internet alone is astronomical. Imagine a young person who wants to learn coding or something tech related. They need to be online constantly. The electricity is bad. Internet is expensive. It takes longer to get to where you want to go to. And I think that's why people are so desperate to get out. Because it almost feels as if you can achieve the things you've been struggling to achieve in 10 years in a fraction of the time, because the resources are not as difficult to get. Now, people survive in spite of it and they excel in spite of it. But that's just the reality. There are fewer resources to get you where you need to go. And I think that's why people, just dream of this magical place where they would get all the skills at little to no cost and, just excel from there. But, every place has its own challenges. Whether it's the US, Canada, UK, anywhere in Europe, you're going to still face certain challenges. The system is still skewed to favor some people and at the detriment of others. So it's just a way to find a way to survive in spite of it. There's so many things to navigate here, there's a lot of cultural shock that people are often not prepared for. One of the first things I did when I got here, and it sounds really small, but was I pierced my nose. And that's something that I was just curious about. It's just something I've always wanted to try, piercing the nose, but I couldn't do that. I was working in the bank. And apart from that, because our society is really conservative, It feels like there's a lot to lose by trying out things. I really applaud women who live in conservative societies like Nigeria and can still be authentically themselves. Do the things they want to do. Keep dreads, pierce their nose, like get extra piercings, get a tattoo if that's what you're interested in. But that's something that I just felt like I couldn't do it back home. But I got here and the penalties for that didn't exist. I was still going to class. The professors didn't think I was wayward because of it. I could still go to work. It was fine. So for me, it's been easier existing as a woman here. I think it's a cultural thing. I think the US has come a long way in, women's rights and, this kind of issues. And we're having conversations in the US that we are nowhere close to having those conversations in conservative societies like Nigeria. In Nigeria, we still have there is 14 years imprisonment for being a lesbian. So those are issues that I don't have to worry about here, or abortion rights, even though the US recently disappointed me with that by revoking the Roe versus Wade. But we still have a long way to go in terms of this kind of issues back home in Nigeria. And as a feminist woman here, it's easier by a mile to exist here. The dating life here as a single lady that has dropped out to the US, it's kind of interesting. And I've seen it play out in both positive and negative outcomes. I've met people who met their partners here. I've also met people who are still struggling in the dating scene. I've also had people who were dating back home, then somehow they were able to meet up here. Coming to the US, they've heard a lot about how difficult it is to find a match to date. So I know that was a big fear for people, but I came without that fear. Dating apps are great, I think, for meeting people. It has worked for me. That's where I met my current partner, and yeah, it's going great. I wasn't on the dating scene for too long, but that is mostly luck, to be honest, because the dating pool shrinks once you're here, because back home you're surrounded by people who have similar backgrounds. You have similar ideas of what a family should look like and what relationship with in-laws should look like. Dating someone of a different cultural background is hard for anyone. I think what makes it different for men and women is because, at least I will speak for Nigerian women, we are way more reluctant to date outside our race. There's a reason, it's difficult, but guys are more open to that, which is great. You get to meet people and get to partake in different cultures, and it can be a very exciting experience, but it can also be very daunting. And I think people really shy away from that possibility. I haven't even gotten to my finish line yet, and I already think it's worth it. I think the quality of education I'm getting in the US is unparalleled. I don't think I would have gotten it anywhere else. I'm learning so much from the professors and the kind of research that I get to do, that I know that, even moving forward, if I get those kind of positions, faculty positions in R1 universities, or work for an NGO or a health consulting company, I know that I am graduating with the skills that I need to succeed in these roles. So it's definitely been a journey that has been worth the sacrifices and the struggles to get to this point. Yeah. I think the decision not to go back home for now, if anything, is actually patriotic in itself, because before I can consider going back, first I have to, first of all, finish this PhD program, at least teach in an R1 university in the US. A school like University of Wisconsin-Madison would be a great start, and also work in some capacity in a health consulting company, so I can get skills from both aspects, both industry and academia, because those are two things that I'm really interested in. I am trying to prepare myself and give myself the skills that I need to even be useful to Nigeria in the first place. If let's say in the next couple of years, We'll see if anyone is interested in like appointing me to be like Minister of Health. I'm not ready, right? I have skills to gain. I have knowledge to get. I have to see how it works in developing worlds. I have to gain, like those valuable skills that I need to get our country there. Then, of course, before I can consider moving back home, I have to get like a permanent residency, hopefully here in the US or Canada. And the reason for that is it gives you like just this flexibility. You can move around the world without as many barriers, at least. Unfortunately, we still live in a world where your passport determines where you can go and where you can't go. And until our country, gets to that point, hopefully in the next generation, our passports will be strong enough to break through barriers, and people can move into other countries, move into different offices holding that same green passport. Yeah, hopefully when I graduate and I get to...
It will happen.
Okay.
So, that's it.
When I graduate, I'm going to get a job as tenure track faculty at R1 University, and hopefully work by the side as a consultant for a health consulting company. That is the ultimate dream. Best of both worlds, so you can make money and still do the kind of research that you're passionate about. I'm sure this is not the end in terms of education for me. I'm obsessed with degrees for some weird reason. So I've already started eyeing a few future degrees that I could get. Maybe something along health law, we'll see.